literally creating a future of potentially infinite possibilities and also concerns about how this technology could be used or misused. Our Kaylee Hartung files this in-depth report on one of the leading creators in this field who at one point became so concerned with its power, he gave up his patent to a university.
It was the viral video moment seen around the world. In April, a monkey playing a game of Pong using only its mind with the help of what's called a Neuralink. The device is Elon Musk's latest venture into a fast-evolving tech space. Tiny chips that get implanted in the brain. Sounds like something out of The Matrix, but this is not a movie.
Welcome to the real world.
Brain chips are part of a revolutionary field that's been around longer than you think.
You really have the answers within you. You have all the answers within you. And you need to quiet down long enough to hear them. And that, to me, is the purpose of meditation. It's a connection with yourself, with your higher self. So every time you do that, you're also connecting with other people who are also doing that. And every time you do a visualization for healing your body or for healing the planet, you're also connecting with like-minded people who are doing the same thing. And
we and a lot of other folks think there's going to be this technology called waveguides, which is completely different from screens, because it's a screen. It's like you're looking at a thing, and basically you're looking at like all the pixels that are on the screen. The thing that's different about a waveguide is it'll actually be see-through, so you'll be able to see the world through it. And then it'll display holograms and be able to place them at different depths in the world.
Is to induce the gradual surrender of American sovereignty, piece by piece and step by step, to various international organizations, of which the United Nations is the outstanding but far from the only example. Now, here are the aims for the United States. 1, greatly expanded government spending for every conceivable means of getting rid of ever larger sums of American money as wastefully as possible. 2, higher and then much higher taxes. 3, an increasingly unbalanced budget despite the higher taxes. 4, wild inflation of our currency. 5, government controls of prices, wages, and materials, supposedly to combat inflation. 6, greatly increased socialistic controls over every operation of our economy and every activity of our daily lives. This is to be accompanied, naturally and automatically, by a correspondingly huge increase in the size of our bureaucracy and in both the cost and reach of our domestic government. 7, far more centralization of power in Washington and the practical elimination of our state lines. There is a many-faceted drive at work to have our state lines eventually mean no more within the nation than our county lines do now within the states. 8, the steady advance of federal aid to and control over our educational system, leading to complete federalization of our public education. 9, a constant hammering into the American consciousness of the horror of modern warfare, the beauties and the absolute necessity of peace, peace always on communist terms, of course. And 10, the consequent willingness of the American people to allow the steps of appeasement by our government, which amount to a piecemeal surrender of
this. You are not alone. This is the resistance. You are not alone. This is the resistance. You are not alone. This is the resistance.
Now, you don't know it yet, but you are listening to history in the making while you are listening to this show.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man, yet as mortal as his own.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Censored by the mainstream media, the destroyer of fake news, and your host of The Rundown Live, Kristan T. Harris.
Welcome to another edition of the Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. I'm your host, Kristan T. Harris, journalist, reporter, talk radio show host, and I'm here with my colleague, Don Vai Jr. from the Free Thought Project, Break the Matrix, amongst every other thing that we've been covering. There's a lot of things to cover today. We have a great guest joining us. We have Luis Fernando Mises. We're going to be talking about psychedelics. We're going to be talking about consciousness. We're going to be talking about libertarianism. We're going to be talking about a whole bunch of things, and he's going to be joining us at the bottom of the first hour. And if you have any questions on these things, you guys can email us, showtips@therundownlive.com. In fact, we read your messages on the air. But before we do that, punch the like button, share, drop some comments in the chat. These things help us beat the algorithms. If you guys want this video as free use, we're 100% listener funded, meaning this is your video. Chop it up, cut it up, share it, edit it, whatever. Put it out there on Tickety Talk. We don't care. Tag us on it. We'd love to hear from you guys as we are listener funded. We are live on video at the kgradb.com. Did you know that they have a live stream now option on the KGRA website? Like, it used to just be audio, but now they actually have the video on there. So if you don't know how to find therundownlive.com, because if you search it on Google, you might not find it. Everywhere else, we're on the top of the search columns. In fact, I think we get most of our search results from DuckDuckGo now. Is that like, what is that? Was that Duck Goose? I wonder if that's why they went with that name. But, you can find us on Rumble, Rockfin, and YouTube, Facebook, but we don't encourage that. We encourage you to find us there. Audio-wise, we are in TalkStream Live. Just find KGRA. That's our digital distribution for audio. KGRA is the largest paranormal network in the world. So if you guys like the Bigfoot and Loch Ness Monster and UFOs and cryptozoology and giants at night, and John B. Wells, former host of Coast to Coast AM, has Caravan to Midnight. That's the anchor show in the evening. You can check that all out. We also have Rabbit Hole Radio and a bunch of things over here. Also, we're cataloged live on band.video. That is one of the largest, if not the largest network of band videos. The network has many great people on there. Not everyone that's on the network is banned, just mostly the Alex Jones InfoWars stuff. Which is interesting. But Greg Reese from the Reese Report, which we've been posting his stuff on our website lately because he's very interesting, detailed, and he covers a lot of the stuff we do here in the show. I should send him a text. I have his text. I have his cell phone number. I don't know if he knows that. I think he does. He has to know that I got it at some point. But you guys, send us an email. If you guys want to get in the chat, there's chats available. We usually look at our YouTube. If you search The Rundown Live, Strike Zone, that's our backup channel, because our third channel is currently under strike awareness because YouTube gods have deemed our information dangerous. Not misinformation, but dangerous per se. That being said, we're going to go ahead and move to the emails. By the way, we love it when we get emails from you. There's a couple of them here we'd like to read. We're going to read one, though. This one is from Mark Beck. Mark says, "Hello, I've recently stumbled upon your show, and I'm in southeastern Wisconsin area. Well, hey there, hey, how you doing there in Wisconsin? I hope you're a Green Bay Packers fan because you're in southeastern Wisconsin, and if you are a fan of the Bears, we can't be friends. He went on to say, I was wondering if there was any idea for doing a group event in your area. You know, I don't know, maybe if we did a Conspiracon or, TrutherCon or, I hate the word con because it's, part of being conned, but maybe we should put together something here in Wisconsin. And he says, I'm in a local band of a few young conspiracy theorists, and we'd love to provide some entertainment for an event. Thank you guys for what you do. Having like-minded individuals so near gives me a little hope that we'll eventually get out of this system. And, we all have that hope, Mark. What's crazy, like in our intro video that we saw today, this is something that people have known for a long time is coming down the railroad track. This isn't something that we came up with from listening, came up with overnight, or we made it or fabricated. Alex Jones made up this fake New World Order, or William Cooper or Byron C. Fagan, or we could go back and back. Some of these videos are from like the 20s and 30s and 40s, and like they're talking about it. There's books written about it in the early 1900s, Philip Drew Administrator, and books even older, stemming back to the 17 and 1800s, and by Adam Weishaupt. And a lot of elite leaders kept using the term the New World Order, including fascist dictators, socialist authoritarians, and many one else. It's a big wet dream for multinational corporatists to be able to dive down and destroy your local community through globalization without any mind or input from you as a local citizen. They'll hold the meetings, but they're all Delphi meetings, like Democrat Rosa Koire, whistleblower on UN Agenda 21, warned about. And that's where the Great Reset came. The UN Agenda 21 in 2021 was supposed to set the precedent for the Great Reset. And that's where we are today. We're just kind of the captains on the ship, and we're trying to avoid as many icebergs as possible on the way and have you guys become aware. But in the news today, guys, there's a lot of stuff happening before we dive into things. What's up, Valerie from Milwaukee? It's nice to hear from you guys. If you guys want to hear more, therundownlive.com. But our very own Aaron Rodgers is in the news again, and he said something controversial. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up, because this is something that we talk about on this program for the last 12 years. In fact, the Rundown Live was started in order to make it bring awareness how there's very little difference in some of the ideologies of left-right paradigm. For example, when we started the show, the Occupy movement, they wanted to audit the Federal Reserve. Well, look at the right-wing libertarian Ron Paul movement. They were all about ending the Fed, right? There were these things in common. The right-wing libertarian movement was all about decriminalizing victimless crimes and legalizing like plants and harmless, drugs like marijuana. And I'm not saying that people can't become lazy and decide to ruin their lives, but it was their own choices to do that. Alcohol ruins lives. Video games ruins lives. Reading too many books and not having any social, life can ruin lives. There's so many things that can ruin lives. It's you who are in control of your life. And we're going to dive into that with our guest consciousness. We're going to talk about psychedelics today. Are they good? Are they bad? Maybe talk about a little bit of some experiences. But before we do that, we want to talk about the man who has been having psychedelic experiences. And I don't know much about what ayahuasca is, except for I did a little research when I saw that Aaron Rodgers did it. And allegedly, you basically have like a what most people have if they try to detox from a life addiction of drugs. You crap yourself, you piss yourself, and you're throwing up all the time. And then all of a sudden, you have the most historic and beneficial mind-clearing, cleansing experience of your life. Now, those warnings, I guess, are mostly false from what I'm hearing and what I'm reading from things that Aaron Rodgers says and others. That is just some poor experiences some people may have had. But Aaron Rodgers offered wise advice on how to heal America. He basically echoed a lot of the things we've been here on the Rundown Live talking to you guys about. And Green Bay Packers quarterback Rodgers thinks people should listen more and talk less. That's right. Listen to people, because people, if you notice, if you disagree with them, what's the main antic, especially with leftists and extreme rightists? It's to shout you down. It's to try to perform you into some kind of public guilt that you did something wrong and persecute you. You know what they're doing? They are judging you, aren't they, Don? Like the group of, the group that triumphs and owns social like awareness is the same group that is out there judging individuals and deeming them harmful or evil without even communicating with them. And then they shout you down just based off of a lot of times what the mainstream media says. And how long is it going to be before like WWF wrestling? And I'm going to tell you this as I grew up watching WWF wrestling. We're talking about, what was it, Junkyard Dog and Roddy Piper and Hulk Hogan, Giant Gonzalez and Tatanka and all these great wrestlers. Once we started, there's rumors that WWF wrestling was fake. A lot of us are like, nah, there's no way it could be. But then you started watching it and you start thinking about it and you're like, yeah, these guys aren't really beating each other. They're very gentle. It's all methodical. It's not like, because like, listen, if somebody's going to break your back or flip you over their back shoulder, you're not going to be ready and prepared to land on your feet unless you practiced it and you threw, you learned how to land the jump or the throw or bounce off the ropes. And at some point, we had to accept that WWF wrestling is staged, it's planned out, and it's faked. And my question is how far are we away from identifying the media and the news and politics to be completely staged and almost everything is planned out? They keep saying people like Klaus Schwab and Kissinger and elitists out there who want this great reset and this UN Agenda 21, this New World Order ideology aren't dangerous. They're just wackos when it keeps coming and being pushed towards fruition and coming alive in our life. So we got to ask ourselves, what is it we can do to bring people together? And following President Joe Biden's incredibly partisan and divisive speech, which, by the way, when he was elected, he said, I'm going to heal America. And I said, well, we'll wait and see. And remember, he said it might take weeks for us to find out who's president. And, he was the first to declare the winning when there was a bunch of controversy of things going on. And it's like weird. It's, it was like it's status quo, Joe. Everything that changed and then I'm not deifying the Orange Man at all. Okay, listen, there's some things that the Orange Man didn't do that normal politicians did because he wasn't your normal politician. He did what he said. And that can be very frightening to some people. And that can be very soothing that a politician who usually uses doublespeak as a form of hypnotic spell casting per se, because what is the process of giving the symbols of words meaning? It's to spell. It's to cast the spell. Grammar is the laws in which magic work by, like Hollywood, the magic wand made from the holly bush. It's those kind of things that people don't realize. And it continues to work in double speak, especially in people who are tribal and they're religious in their political beliefs and are not willing to root out their own cognitive dissonance. And here we have it. He goes on to say, Rogers urged people to open their ears and listen to stuff that they might not agree with. Oh, really? You got top leftists out there saying, don't be friends with conservatives. Don't have civil conversations with conservatives because it will eventually just make you more conservative. And that's what the leaders of leftist organizations like Antifa and leftist organizations who, sit in the crowds of anti-fascist and anarcho-communist ideologies often believe. And if we're not able to have civil conversations to raise consciousness, how are we going to do it? And that's why they find that's why they can't just come out and say we're censoring the Rundown Live, because that's our mission and our goal is to bring people together, root out cognitive dissonance and logical fallacies. But you guys got to take the first step and decide for yourself what is real and what is not and what is fake. And remember, you want to feed your brain, but what falls on fertile soil and grows in your mind is your decision, right? And what you do with that information is your decision. So in order to test your belief system and to have it ingrained at a deeper salient level is to have it challenged. not to live in an echo chamber where you're repeating and saying the same thing, hearing the same things, and locking in the same algorithms that give you the same opinion and belief over and over again. That's how division happens, because there's zero room for people to connect and at least just listen to what you have to say. At the end of the conversation, it should be, I respectfully disagree with that. Awesome, but at least you listen to it. The NFL star, that's what Aaron Rodgers had to say. And why is it so dangerous, Don? Why don't they want us just to listen to each other?
Well, I think because listening to each other and actually having civil conversations, it brings people together. It breaks down the tribalist dividing lines that have been established throughout society to, keep people pitted against each other, to keep people trapped inside of these echo chambers. They spend a lot of time, especially in the mainstream media, especially with a lot of the programming that's pumped into society, really pushing this division, as well as, we talk a lot about thought terminating cliches and a lot of these other things where they just push this narrative essentially of, don't go anywhere outside of your echo chamber. Don't talk to anybody that contradicts your ideas, really establishing this, sort of tribalist groupthink among multiple different groups pitted against each other. Because, at the end of the day, it's so funny to me that what Aaron Rodgers said is nowadays it's considered controversial when it should just be common sense. Talk to people, have conversations, be respectful, be polite. But nowadays, everything has been put into this hyper aggressive chamber where it's not allowed. Essentially, it's blasphemy. It's heresy to entertain ideas that are contrary to your own. When Aristotle and so many of these other, philosophical and other thought leaders pointed out in various, there's multiple people who made quotes like this who said around about the same thing. The basis of intelligence is to be able to entertain ideas that are contrary to what you believe, or, to have conversations about things that you might not necessarily agree with, but still have the capability to have said conversations regardless. And, it really just boils down to being decent people to each other, because at the end of the day, once we start having conversations and talking to one another, we realize that we have a lot more in common. And I've said this over and over again. I'll say it as long as I'm doing this, that we have a lot more in common with each other. The average people do, regardless of your political, religious, or other ideological beliefs, far more than you have in common with some sort of deified political leader. And that's why they keep us divided. That's why they have their minions in the media keep us divided. That's why they have the programming in Hollywood and whatnot keep us divided. Because if we are united, then, it poses a threat to their monopoly of control. Unmute yourself, brother.
That is 100%, spot on to what we've been talking about. And, bringing people together. Like, listen, I have controversial beliefs in the fact that I'm a born again Christian, and I dabble in esotericism and occultism. I made friends and I chose to make acquaintances with people like Eric Freeman, who was the former head of the New Church of Satan, to better understand it. Like Magneto and Professor Xavier and X-Men sitting down and playing chess and having conversations. Mr. Eric Freeman also provided like wedding gear for the Anton LaVey's kids, and he's friends with Crowley's kids. He made clothing, I think, for Marilyn Manson, amongst other things. And he's no longer the head of the New Church of Satan. In fact, I think he is now agnostic and no longer involved in that religion. But people change, and people who want to become better people, they live and learn, and they are willing to have conversations with people that don't believe the same thing. And they're able to have civil conversations. You'll sit down, there's people you'll try to have a conversation with, and they get worked up. It's like popping their cherry. Like it's the first time they've had to have a difficult conversation, and their heart's like sitting there, boom, 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 and they're starting to swim in there, and you can hear it in their voice because they start to get shaky. And it's like, no, just chill out. I'm not here. Right. We're not doing battle. Like, I want to hear what you have to say, and I want to learn from you. And then I want to be able to say something, and I want you to learn and understand these things. It was like this week I had a conversation with a customer, basically at a store, and she was talking about, I overheard her say something about Joe Rogan, and I wasn't living in defense of Joe Rogan either. However, in this case, they had to deal with censorship, and she's like, I really don't like that program. And I turned around and I said, well, the one thing I really like about Joe Rogan, to say positive things about him, is the fact that he gives people a voice that otherwise wouldn't have voices. And she's like, yeah, dangerous people. And I said, a lot of those dangerous people ended up being incredibly right. Like, the virus came from Wuhan, that masks don't work, all these kind of things, that we start to learn about. And, if those people never had a voice, then people would have not been able to make good decisions in their life due to censorship. That is what caused the issue. I said it's very unscientific to limit data, because if you prevent data in the scope of science, you can't come to accurate decisions, right? And that's the same thing within your real life. If you're not going to go and actually go to the source and ask a question, like people that are Christians would always say to me, well, why would you open the door for Satan in your life and he sticks a leg through? And then it's like, okay, well, if you're believing that he's going to have that much control over your life, he's already winning. If you're so worried you can't live your life in a way that is carefree as the good Lord intended it, and be able to have civil conversations with people that disagree with you, no matter what their religious beliefs, you're not going to build and grow your wisdom and spiritual culture. If you want to know who the most wise person in the Bible is, everyone says it was King Solomon. You know what he was? He was also known as one of the biggest black wizards in history, who conjured demons to build the mines of Solomon and a temple and everything else. And then he ended up, at one point in his life, going back and becoming, he learned from that. And he went and he found out that by going to the dark side, that it wasn't all it was cracked out to be. You know how they say it, the lawn is always greener on the other side until you get there and you have to mow it. So that's how it always goes. But, you got to challenge your worldview. And one of those things I've always struggled with has been, at first, drugs and psychedelics. Not me doing drugs, but the idea that it's okay growing up in a religious household. And when I heard Ron Paul say that nobody belongs in jail for smoking marijuana and nobody belongs in jail for victimless crimes, my head exploded. I was like, what do you mean it ruins lives? And so that's when I had to start doing some research. And, it inspired me to look and think about it. Who's really harmed, and what crime's actually being committed by somebody who decides they want to eat a little mushroom? I guess if you commit a crime while on mushrooms, then you probably deserve what you get. You weren't responsible, and you made a mistake. But I don't think everyone's going to be going hacking around people because guns are banned like they do in Canada now all of a sudden, because, they're on psychedelics. What causes them to go hack people up in Canada like that is probably psychotropic drugs that are antidepressants, and it says right on the pill bottle may cause thoughts of suicide and murder and anger and dangerous intent. Now, keep in mind, not everyone gets those feelings. It works for 99.99%, but when you have 100 million people on psychoactive drugs, you're going to get one or two people that are going to go out and commit crimes. So it's wild to me. That being said, we are going to commercial break. I'm excited about having our guest, Fernando, Mises, joining us, libertarian, conscious communicator, as well as we'll be talking about psychedelics. I don't really know what psychedelics are like, right, guys? I've never really been like, I'm going to do LSD or acid. So I'm an outsider, other than the fact I have one story where I was given something I didn't know I was given. Like the person putting something in the glass of water. That kind of happened to me, and we can tell you how I can relate and stuff. But that being said, we'll be back with our guests. Don't go anywhere. Punch the like button. Drop us an email. Show tips at the Rundown Live. You're listening to us on KGRADB.com, your morning news on Salt Lake City, Utah, Hudson Valley, New York.
Looks innocent enough, doesn't it? Lots of young people play cornhole in the park. Seems like a good place to toss a bag around. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly. One never knows when the conspiracy theorist is about. Let's take the case of Ronald Farber. Ronald played cornhole all afternoon, and he didn't feel like throwing bags alone, so he decided to ask another boy. He'd done it 100 times before. He didn't think anything was unusual when the boy struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. What Ronald didn't know was that Ralph was sick. A sickness that was not visible like swine flu, but no less dangerous and contagious. A sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a conspiracy theorist, a paranoid person with a desperate need to feel they have a special knowledge that somehow sets them apart from the masses. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful. If they are too open-minded, if they question the official versions of the facts, and if they don't trust the United States government. One never knows when the conspiracy theorist is about. He may appear normal.
It's no secret that the independent media is held to a much higher standard than the lamestream media. When's the last time that you've seen the New York Times get a 30-day ban for lying about weapons of mass destruction? Or how about the Independent getting a 7-day suspension on YouTube for claiming that everyone that Kyle Rittenhouse shot was African American? The truth is you don't, because they get away with it. We don't. We're independents. And what separates us from the lamestream media is that we are 100% funded by you. That's right. We're your radio program. We're your station, and we're open to everyone. We're interested in hearing all the topics, all the sides, because that's kind of like how science works, right? You take in all the data, you decide what is correct and what is not, but it doesn't censor information, because then you can't make great decisions to feed your brain. We need your help here on therundownlive.com. Support us by heading over to our website and checking out our brand new swag. We have hot and sexy, all-seeing eye UFO pyramid boombox t-shirts. That's right, check them out. They're great, and there's no better way to support us than picking up some swag to spread the word about liberty and freedom and the ability to choose what is real and what is not for yourself, not some ministry of truth. Check us out, therundownlive.com. Pick up a t-shirt today. Again, that's therundownlive.com. Hit our store link and go shop, pick something up, support us.
Oil and slave labor. These two wonderful industries make modern life a breeze. And what this fine little filly doesn't realize is that her chic accessories and stunning appearance come from oil and slave labor.
Huh?
That's right, classy lassie. Everything from your thong to your nail polish, your smartphone to your eyelashes come from oil and slave labor. Your top from Uzbekistan. Shorts from China. Jewelry from Indonesia. And your iPhone from Taiwan.
Oh no, not my iPhone!
Steve Jobs may have been a genius, but he couldn't work like a 5-year-old Asian boy can. Even your brawn panties from Bangladesh. Whoa there! Looks like science can go no further. Except for these silicone beauties from DuPont.
Hey.
Oil and slave labor, making the Western world beautiful.
Rundown Live, rundownlive.com, live on KGRA, Hudson Valley, New York, Salt Lake City, Utah, being broadcasted on TalkStream Live and TuneIn, iHeartRadio, Spotify, all these different platforms. You can catch video on KGRADB.com. Of course, you know, if you want it, just tell you what, go to therundownlive.com. You can find it all there, band.video, cataloged in the evening, therundownlive.com. If you want to contact us, send us an email, showtips@therundownlive.com. And today we are going to have a guest joining us in this bottom half of the hour. We're going to be talking a little bit about psychedelics, raising consciousness. And my first experience with psychedelics was, you know, I'll tell you the story, Don. And first of all, let me ask you, have you ever had any experience with psychedelics?
I have not yet.
Not yet. Does that mean that you are planning to?
Eventually, yes, when I can do so in a controlled and safe environment.
Yeah, and they say that's very important. So my experiences in 2015, I was in Dallas, Texas. Okay, I
That's where
was.
Lewis is from, ironically.
That's awesome. We probably been to some of the same places, and I was staying at a hotel, and there was a convention there. Judith Baker, former lover of Lee Harvey Oswald, was throwing together a JFK convention, which was John B. Wells and what's his name? Stone Cold there. Why can't I? Roger Stone was there. There was just like FBI agents and all sorts of different people surrounding the JFK assassination, including somebody who was involved or in the room when the autopsy happened and a lot of other things. But while I was there, it was a whole 4-weekend convention. I was driving Judith around, which was an honor. We went and visited Lee Harvey Oswald's grave, and a lot of people would be like, why would you do that? Because she truly believes he was a patsy and innocent. And from what we've learned from the government paperwork and research that was released during the JFK files, it's suggesting that possibly a law enforcement officer or a person dressed like a law enforcement officer shot him from the grassy knoll. The CIA suggests. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But that's what a lot of the experts were also saying at this convention, which came out probably 2 years before the JFK paper documents released. Anyways, long story short, I'm out there and it's kind of like a working vacation. I'm filming, I'm doing video. I got to hang out with Jim Mars, do some shots of whiskey. And then I went to go pick up some food. So I walked down the block and there was a homeless guy and he was a vet. And you know what? I gave him a $20 bill. I just gave him and he said, oh, hey, wait, mister. He goes, here, I got something for you. And he goes, you want some pot? And I'm like, okay, I'm in Dallas, Texas. Why not? I'm on vacation. And, so I took some of it and then I ended up, because I was a daily smoker. I've been for maybe not so much anymore because they have all these legal versions that work. So I've not, if I get it and I'm someplace and they have it, it's cool. Otherwise it's Delta 10, Delta 8, whatever. But then it wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. So I decided to roll it up and I took one hit and then I noticed something wasn't right. All of a sudden, my heart was racing, and I could hear it in my ears, just pumping away. And I closed my eyes, and I saw a South American pyramid with a fat dude on top that looked kind of like a Buddha, but not. He was very, I would say, Mayan looking, as far as, Jaguar type of hat type deal, something on his head. And he was on top of the pyramid on one knee. And it was just kaleidoscoping in my brain and kaleidoscoping in my brain and kaleidoscoping. And I was practicing my breathing skills, right? I'm sitting here, I'm breathing slow, trying to slow down my heart rate. I'm like, am I going to die? Am I having a heart attack? And then all of a sudden I got a text message. It was ding. And it was John B. Wells' assistant at the time, who was a wonderful and beautiful lady. We went out that night and we had a great time. We were out till like 4 a.m. It was wild. We met musicians and people in the bands and we went and hung out with them afterwards. It was a good time. And, but when I hit that ding, it didn't stop then, just the hallucinations of the pyramid, but my heart rate slowed down. And what I started to see when I had my eyes closed was a sky full of stars, much like when on a big starry night. And then all of a sudden lines started shooting and connecting all the stars and the stars started moving. And essentially my mind knew that these were decisions people were making. And based on those decisions, it showed how it affected different areas of the planet of where the stars align. And then certain stars would go out. Bam, somebody died. But you could see the string of interactions that led to the situation where that person died. And it was the most bizarre thing. And there was one point at this time where I realized that I could go insane if I wanted to stay here, or I would need to fight to find my way back to consciousness. And I'm like, well, I don't want to go insane. I could stay here. I'm not going to stay here. And then bing, I popped out of it with another text message. And I looked at what seemed to be 2 hours. It was less than 15 minutes of me just sitting on a bed dealing with this. And then I went out and I went out on a date and it was a great time. But I for months afterwards, I would have fearful relapse. And I don't know what was on that marijuana, but it wasn't normal marijuana. We're just
Right.
going to put it at that. I don't know if it was DMT, and because I took such a big hit and I held my breath because I was in a hotel room and I had the little toilet paper rollie, the little dirty side of it being illegal in Dallas. And, I blew through it, and then I was like, oh, it was a wild experience. It was not like people want to know about a good experience. It was not a good experience for me, not feeling wise, but mentally, it was a very mind opening and understanding that there's a whole world out there, another universe per se, where there's reality and you're able to understand and see and step aside the big, magnificent picture of what this whole world is by doing some form of brain-altering drugs. What those drugs do to you or the danger of those drugs, I'm not a doctor. All I know is I survived. And there's people out there that take all sorts of types of drugs, LSD, ayahuasca, mushrooms. What are the red ones that, people talk about all the time, the Jesus ones?
I
Old
don't
School
recall.
from Mario Brothers. Hold on. Red. I can find it. Red mushrooms.
I know the main property in trippy mushrooms is like psilocybin.
Yeah, it's
That might be what you're thinking of.
Amanita muscaria is the mushroom.
Yeah, that's right.
And it's commonly known as the fly agaric or fly amanita, and it's a very popular drug. And there's a whole book written about how Jesus Christ was a mushroom. And like people have they relate things, and when they do these drugs, they come up with these different types of ideas. And there's an archaeologist who thought Jesus was a mushroom, a story of a man who believed Jesus was a psychedelic mushroom and that the New Testament Christians were a sex cult. Maybe that's why they call it a seminary.
I mean, who knows? I do remember I read an article a couple years ago. There was a scientist in Israel who did a study, and he concluded that Moses was high on mushrooms when he talked to the burning bush.
I mean, that's what it could be. Like, I don't know. I don't honestly know any other way to explain it in real world. And people are saying things like, well, it was a real burning bush. Was it a real burning bush, or was he taking, because keep in mind, Moses was an adept, right? He was well schooled in the mystery religions. He was Pharaoh's right-hand man. And so Moses, another thing people don't understand about the term Moses, back then Moses was a name.
Yeah.
It was a title. It was like president or CEO. And so there's debate on what the ethnicity of Moses was. Was he a lot of scholars, and in fact, growing majority believe he was Asian. He wasn't even Egyptian or Israeli or Hebrew per se. But here we have it. Like people have come across some different ideas, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Judaic religion, and it has very sexual undertones. Just look at the symbol of the Star of David. You got two triangles, one's male, one's female, and they come together to give a form of intercourse. The King Solomon's temple is laid out like a female body orifice with a male phallus going into it. Look at the things like all the mystery religion diagrams at the Vatican, where they have obelisks which represent the phallus of Osiris or Nimrod, depending on who you talk to. And these kind of things are permeated throughout our culture. So a lot of it gets collected by other religions and other people and other things, and they become part of it. And it's weird to me to think that people aren't willing to have the conversation. And although I don't believe Jesus was a mushroom, I can see why people would feel that way. Like you said, the burning bush, the whole book of Revelations, in my opinion, was probably done on a psychedelic trip. I'm not going to even lie. Either that or through meditation. Listen, my buddy Lev Polyakov, he does a show called, what is it? I think it's called Breaking the Rules with Lev and Jules. And Breaking the Rules, he talks about how all he does is meditation, he does his yoga, and he actually self-conduces these type of visions. Now, is that possible? I don't know. I've never been a yoga guy. I've never been really into meditation, except for when I was heavily involved in the Assembly of God Church, because they taught you about speaking, about focusing your energy, speaking in tongues, and you would feel an energy. There would be something about it, and you would start to feel visions in your mind and futuristic layouts of what you need to do, and your path would be set. But not just in Christianity are there these steps. This is the tree of life. These are the things that the Buddhists talk about, and a lot of the Kabbalah talks about, and the Metatron's cube, and we could go on and on and on about these things. But people don't understand that psychedelics have been a big part of wise individuals' history, right? Smart people have used them. So that being said, we have a great guest joining us today on the Rundown Live, and I want to give him a great welcome. Welcome to the show, Luis Fernando Mises, a life coach. He does a whole bunch of things with yoga, raising consciousness, and he is a co-producer on a convention on psychedelics and consciousness awareness. Welcome to the Rundown Live. We're lucky to have you today, and I noticed you're a fellow libertarian.
I'm so happy to be here with you guys. Thank you.
It's very great to have you here, Lewis. You and Jason with the Free Thought Project, I know y'all have been like best friends forever. So, me being recently with the Free Thought Project, it's fantastic to finally have you here and be able to actually have a conversation about these topics, man. Welcome.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely, man. So, let's just go on ahead and dive into this. I figured we'd just kind of ad-lib it and just see where the conversation goes. So, first of all, for our viewers who don't really, know who you are, what you do, give them a little bit of background about yourself and just, exactly, what brought you to what you do and exactly what it is.
That's, always such a difficult question to answer, but I will start. I'm a leadership. I'm not a life coach.
I apologize.
No worries. It's kind of a funny thing, but anyway. So I do leadership development. So I basically, if I were to condense it to one thing, my elevator pitch is, I teach people how to people. So oftentimes when somebody gets a promotion at their job, is because they're really good at what they do, but then they don't know how to be a supervisor, a leader, a manager, or a director, or whatever. So I come in and I help them learn skills, for every step, because you add on things. And, some people say, oh, I hate meetings. Well, now as a director, your job is meetings. Surprise, surprise kind of thing, So that's the main thing, bread and butter. I also have a store where I sell Kratom. I got a brown recluse bite probably 6 years ago, and as the main earner of the family, I couldn't just stop, right? Because it killed my energy. It was one of the most bizarre things. Anyway, so I found Kratom, or Kratom found me, and I was like, I need to share this stuff with everybody. So I started selling it. That's our fun business. Also, leadership. Yoga. I became a certified yoga instructor back in 2010, and that's what took me into psychedelics and even libertarianism, funny enough. So we can talk more about that if you guys want to. And it's been a really interesting ride, let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was in the top 1% of 2 Fortune 500 companies in another life, maybe about 10 years ago. And you're right, there's a lot of people that know how to manage a business and be a manager. But when it comes to people skills and learning how to work and overcome differences, how to listen, servant leadership, all these other things, sometimes people need a little coaching there and struggle. And it's you got to be able to balance those things, especially when it comes to becoming successful and planning out your career. And the best way of having independence is to be your own boss, which obviously you've done with the Kratom. And for our listeners that are out there that don't know what is Kratom, like my mother asked me about Kratom, and she asked me, where she can get some. I didn't even know what it was all the way up to about a year ago. And I think we had Leroy from Leroy Press on. He's a journalist out of New York. and there was something happened there, and he was talking about how he was selling kratom, but he recently got raided and had it taken away from him in New York. But I'm not quite sure, what is kratom equivalent to? What is it? What does it do? And for the listener out there that doesn't understand.
Okay, so kratom is a plant, a shrubbery, and it's a cousin of the coffee plant. So, when you drink your lovely coffee, what do you feel? You feel happiness. You feel a tiny bit of euphoria. You feel that warmth. And so it is also a vasoconstrictor. It will give you a little bit more of an energy kick, if you will. It is not an opioid, but it rubs the receptors. Like, it doesn't attach to the receptors, but it rubs them. So it mimics a little bit opioids. So it helps a lot with pain management. I've had people who have brain cancer, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, all sorts of things that buy from me because this is the only thing that really gives them quality of life. I've helped people get off of like hydrocodone, oxycodone, heroin, even alcohol, if you will. This is a fantastic plant. Can it be abused? Yes, it can. But it doesn't have to be that way. So, like some people say, well, you're just substituting one plant for the other. It's not the same at all. You have a lot more control, unless you want to, really abuse it. So anyway, this is a truly fantastic thing. I got into extracts because, after a while, your tolerance goes up. So you don't want to be taking cinnamon challenge spoons, like one time I actually like a tablespoon, I ate it, it was heaping, and then I started choking. And then I ended up blowing it out of my nose, and I was like, oh, I hate this shit. Wow. But then when it kicked in, I was like, oh, I kind of like this. It doesn't get you high, it's not psychoactive, it just makes you feel it's euphoric and energizing.
Yeah, I actually got some of your kratom through Matt and Jason, as a matter of fact, about a year or so ago, because I have neurological damage in my lower back through my sciatic nerves. It makes it difficult to get around the house every once in a while. And I'll tell you, man, it night and day difference. It's just I need to reincorporate it into my regimen. I sort of fell off with it. But just within a week or so of taking small doses, I was like, hey, I can walk again. This is great.
I'm glad to hear that. That's awesome.
Yeah, when we start talking about these things, we were always wondering, when I started dabbling in libertarianism 12 or 13 years ago, maybe even longer, 15 or 16 years ago now, I started to ask, why are plants illegal? Why, especially things like cannabis, and now we got kratom, which is not illegal in, I think, most areas. And then you got psychedelics like mushrooms, LSD, ayahuasca, all these different kind of things that are out there. And people are using them to fight depression now. You can when I was in Colorado, you could buy chocolate bars that have mushrooms in them, and they help you fight depression. And allegedly they have a huge medicinal purpose. There's people out there, they say that it helps them deal with different kind of mental illnesses, whether it's narcissism or sociopathism. Taking mushrooms has helped a lot of people start to feel like they have a purpose when they might have been depressed, or they might have been struggling with different types of social anxiety.
It is such a fantastic ally to our health. And just to think about it, mushrooms have been here significantly longer than we have, longer than trees. This was and still is a mushroom world. Those guys connect and they talk, and just to be able to get a glimpse of their wisdom and knowledge and love is incredible. So all the I wasn't always super in love with mushrooms. I used to kind of be oh yeah, ayahuasca, San Pedro, all of these things, and mushrooms over here. And then, because I hadn't had a great breakthrough then, I was like, well, they work, but they're all right. But then I started getting into them really intentionally with a teacher, and that stuff blew my mind. Even at some point, one of my teachers along the road told me that on my mom's side, lineage said that a grandfather worked with mushrooms, back in the old days. And then so I connected with him, and he started teaching me all sorts of things that I had not even touched with other plant medicines. And like what you mentioned about depression, anxiety, all that, it creates neurogenesis in your brain. So you have new connections. You're able to see things differently. Another thing that happens is, when you have like an addiction, right? That's like a synapses connection that's pretty strong. So you cannot fight it by breaking that connection. You have to create a stronger connection somewhere else that just overrides that. So it helps you. One of the most amazing things about psychedelics that I've seen, it helps you see things anew. A lot of people that have like the weight of the world on their shoulders for whatever reason, it just washes a lot of that stuff out, so you can see life again like a child, if you will.
Yeah, that's what I've come to notice in my studies, reading articles, because of course we cover a lot of psychedelic news on the Free Thought Project about the legalization, the decriminalization, and especially like the medicinal benefits, because like I think that's one thing that so many people like still don't really grasp, especially like I've even seen so like maybe not so much in the anarchist movement or the voluntarist movement, but like in somewhat of the libertarian movement, like you have those that are like, okay, yeah, we decriminalize marijuana and whatnot, but there are some people who still don't like grasp. It's not like like LSD, where like lab cooked LSD or stuff like that. Like these are medicinal plants that, as you said, they've been around for a very, very long time, and scientific study shows that they're very helpful in treating things: depression, anxiety, ADHD, like narcissistic personality disorders, a lot of things like that. And now we're sort of getting into this frame of mind in the libertarian movement where people are now starting to realize the positive benefits of these plants just as much as, say as or maybe even more so, because of course cannabis is, capable of treating cancer. But now we're starting to realize that in as far as mushrooms are concerned, is also capable of treating the depression that comes along with cancer and the chemotherapy, and just the bad mental side effects of going through such a traumatic disease. And so a lot of these things put together, it's I've always been of the belief that plants, we're human beings, we're all a part of our ecosystem, our environment, and these plants are a part of our existence on this planet and in our environment. So of course we should all work with a synchronicity, working together, much like human beings and animals. And I guess that sort of goes to the greater thing of consciousness, of how we're all on some level connected deeper. And I think that's one of the greatest benefits, obviously, of these psychedelics isn't just the medicinal properties, but the elevation of consciousness to get us to that sort of frame of mind. Of course, this went really fast. We're coming across commercial break, folks.
We can just skip the break this time, guys. Skip the commercial breaks if we can. We can go ahead and we'll just go right into the top of the second hour here segment, and we'll just keep it going because it's a great conversation. Want to keep it going.
Awesome. Well, there we go. Yeah. And so, as I was saying, the greatest thing is, getting us to that elevated point of consciousness where we realize, like, these stupid little things that divide us are so, meaningless in the greater aspect of things. I read there are studies that have been done that when people microdose psychedelics, like when you specifically do a study where you bring in people that have like racist tendencies and you start microdosing them with LSD and like some of these other psychedelics, the racism drops, man, because like it just opens up this thing in their mind, like, why do I have something against somebody because they have a different skin color or something of mine? And it just really opens people up to realizing how connected we all are and just like the vastness of the world.
Yeah, it's interesting. Part of me wants to ask, why was it illegal in the first place? Was there somebody out there? Because it seems like these elitists quite often they're the ones that are using it. Like here it is, Silicon Valley's microdosing magic mushrooms to boost their career. So you're telling me somebody in the 30s and 40s didn't figure this out, or 20s, and they're like, we can't have this. We don't want people boosting their careers. So we're going to make it illegal, and we're going to keep it amongst some of these business professionals who will understand and use it to further their careers and make those things possible. Recently, we've had Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay Packers. We're here in Milwaukee. Well, I'm here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and they're a state-ordained religion here, the Green Bay Packers. And when he was talking about doing ayahuasca, I had to look it up. I was like, what in the heck is ayahuasca? And I kept reading about all these horrible side effects. But when you look into it, those side effects are very far and few between, and very few people have those side effects. But they always seem to have a very religious, eye-opening, life-changing experience. And I guess for the listener out there, and somebody like me who's never really experienced psychedelic drugs except for a bad trip when I didn't know I was taking it, what is it? What do you experience when you take mushrooms? What's the first thing that happens? Like if you had to paint a picture or direct a 60-second video of what you see and what it looks like when you are doing mushrooms, what is it like for the listener out there that may not know?
Okay, let me because you asked a really important question, like, the Silicon Valley people. Let me just go back to that real quick. It's not something that is new. It's something that was here, since the Spaniards came. When they went to Central America, Caribbean, Mexico, they would see, I'm Mexican, they would see us, taking peyote, taking all these things, and to them that was like the works of the devil. So it's like it's not a 20th century thing. It's like 1400s shit that they just kept dragging because they thought it was the devil. Even like now, some people think that like yoga and psychoactive plans are the works of the devil. Like the devil talks to you through those things. Now, so that's kind of the thing. Now, if you think about it, people that create advancement are the ones that break the rules, right? So the bohemians, if you will, people that are like the artists, those are the ones that like would take drugs, would like rock and roll kind of stuff. So, and now, who are the people that make more breakthroughs? Well, obviously tech world, right? So those are the ones now that are taking all of these plans. And so yeah, it's not because they want big pharma to stay or anything like that. No, this shit's like way beyond. So there is no conspiracy as far as that goes there. And then your next question, what is it like? Like truly, even though there are like a lot of things that are in common, it is going to be really different what you're going to see. Like I will tell you that there's people that don't see anything. They're like not visual at all. There are some people who see all of the things, and so anything in between. But what I will say is that usually more like a timeline is you start feeling time slows down. You start like connecting, like you see the colors are brighter, you see things are more alive, even if you're not having visuals, you just feel more connected to things. And then just the act of breathing, you're like, oh, that's crisp, fresh air, fuck, like you feel like a level of enhanced happiness. And the elements feel so good, getting in the water, just getting barefooted. Like I'm from Mexico City. I am the only times that I don't wear shoes is when I'm swimming and when I'm sleeping, so but I like to be without shoes sometimes when I'm taking plant medicine. So you kind of break down a barrier of yourself, the persona, and nature. There's a lot of people that say, well, they feel like they're disconnected from nature. The reality is like we are, but not necessarily. It's like a personal thing. So once we get there, we're able to connect more with one another, with everything else. So that's what's one thing. You start having catharsis. You start so one of my teachers, like very, very first teachers back in 2012, he said that 90-something% of people, like the first trip, like the first 3 trips is healing, like whatever trauma. And then you start moving on to otherworldly stuff, like secrets of the universe or whatever. They're not secrets, they're plain in sight. You just have to go knock, So it's a misnomer. Yeah. I apologize for that. So, one of my teachers said, you have to get rid of the old before you can allow any new to come in. So all like, and even like the traumatic experiences, and I say traumatic because like they are super helpful for our development. They're opportunities to see who we really are. They like, so the way I view it is, all of these things that happen to you, they're not happening to you. They're opportunities for you to know how, like, who you really are, and then you start becoming that person. So once you see it as, this is a fantastic thing, instead of, oh, I can't catch a break, oh, this, like, no, like, yeah, shit, like, life's supposed to be hard. There is a reason behind it, so you start flowing more. So that flow, a little bit more pep in your step, those are some common traits. Now, if I may, like the idea of a bad trip, like if you don't know that you're fucking getting into a bad trip, that like, like if you've never taken that and you take it and then you're like, seeing things, that's gonna weird you out. You have to be prepared. You have to come in, like hopefully, ideally have a sitter, somebody that knows what they're doing. So it can be pretty challenging otherwise. So the bad trips, in my experience, are not necessarily bad trips, but trips that you're not prepared to see, or maybe you haven't done enough work. Because what happens usually, and this is also kind of what happens in my perspective when we die, like there's not like a judgment day. What happens is that life presents you with all the stuff that you've done, and then you feel what you've made others feel, whether good or bad. So if you've been kind of a poopy person, all of that is gonna come, and they're gonna show you, like, you are this person. Is this who you want to be, really? And then that's like, you see people dying, you see people hurting, all this stuff, scary things. So, being prepared that you're gonna be shown sometimes how you're messing up. That's a really important factor. But also, like opening to, like it kind of holds the key to the new you. Like that painful experience allows you to open up a new Kristen, a new Dawn, a new Louise,
Yes. When I first started learning, like really learning about like the psychological and the mental and the neurological and even the conscious sort of aspects of psychedelics, is when I first, a few years ago, I happened to be listening to the Joe Rogan Experience, and he had Graham Hancock on, which I'm sure you're very familiar with. And, Graham was talking about his experience in ayahuasca when he was down in the Amazon rainforest, and how it was sort of a purging experience at first, like the first couple times, like he was just crapping and throwing up everywhere, and just his whole body was just sort of purging out the toxicity and the negativity. Then he said like the fourth or fifth time, it was this mind-blowing experience of really just opening his mind to, like greater dimensions in a way. And you brought up like, death and the afterlife and things. And that's one thing about it that I've always found so interesting, is because, of course, the way psychedelics, at least some of them, interact with the brain neurochemically is by causing like these massive hits of like DMT, the dimethyltryptamine, for some of the fans that aren't sure what DMT is. And like DMT is produced by the brain when it dies. But also it could be like taken like any other plant orally. I'm not sure exactly where it can be extracted from, but like there's multiple ways to do DMT, but it's also a chemical that the brain produces upon death. And so I've always found that connection very interesting, and I think that's one of the reasons why, correct me if I'm wrong, that it helps to expand consciousness, because like when it starts to hit through your pineal gland like that, it sort of gives you that not necessarily like a foot through the door of the afterlife, but like a more open perspective to the greaterness of the universe. And
there's more to life, right?
Yeah.
There's more to life. You start to realize that, hey, you're at level 1-1 in Super Mario Brothers, and there's a secret zone. If you jump in a certain area and go down this pipe, all of a sudden there's a whole new level you never even knew about. And that's kind of that was my experience too, even though I call it a somewhat bad trip. But people take DMT. I know that Chris Gio, for my former syndication at Truth Frequency Radio over there in Denver, Texas, he does the DMT, and he talks about talking to clockwork elves. And I mean, he has interactions with what I don't know if those are his own mind or within his own mind, but I looked it up. It's a very common thing. I don't know how it is that so many people can do DMT and they see clockwork elves. They all see the same things, and some of them have good experiences. Some think that they're like demonic experiences. Sometimes it helps them deal with trauma. A lot of times they're playing music and dancing on your body and massaging you. I started reading into this, and I'm not quite sure about it, but it's intrigued me that DMT might be an entryway or our gate to our inner soul to understand what's going on into the like spiritual world or whatever we deem to be some form of consciousness.
So what I think, like our eyes can only see a percentage of the electromagnetic light spectrum, right? Like tiny. And what happens with these plants, in my perspective, is that you increase that. So you see not just through your eyes, you see, like, you perceive life more fully. And sometimes, the first few times, that's why it's so scary, because you don't know what you're looking at, And I will say that I guess my super geekiness is what helped me get really into shamanism faster, because, I'm really good at physics and chemistry, and then like some math. So I'm like seeing things, and I say, oh, that is like a machine, and this is like, I was able to understand what the hell those things were and how to use them. It's like, oh, this is a tool. Oh my gosh, So moving energy in certain ways, and so at first you're looking at things and you don't know. Like people say, I just see all these geometrical figures. Yeah, for sure you do, but what are those? So interacting with them and learning, the machine elves, all of that, it gets super, super interesting. And how everything is happening right here, right now, like it's not necessarily that another dimension is over there. It's just another layer of where we are, but we see it the more that, we're in touch. Now, you don't always have to take plant medicine to do this. After taking plant medicine for a while, like I think it's about training the subtle, like really connecting with the subtle energy, and then you start feeling and seeing and hearing, and it's not like you're like going crazy or brainwashing yourself. Like you actually become really sensitive to things when you want to, because you don't want to always be sensitive, like you're gonna be puking all the time.
Right. Yeah. It's sort of like tuning your brain to be more of a tool to experience these things and understand what they are. So it's sort of like deep meditation, for example. I've heard that people can even enter these like enhanced conscious states like they do with plant medicine in with just regular, meditation without any sort of substances, because they're able to get their body and mind into that state where their brain and the pineal gland starts firing off these little hits of DMT, and so it brings them into that state.
Oh yeah, and it's not like, so the plant medicine will help you stay at that place for a specific amount of time, like meditation, you can sustain it for a little while, but it's not like you can go 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30 hours, like iboga is like freaking 30 hours. So like they even help you go pee and shit, because it's like you can't walk kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty awesome.
I find it really interesting the way it's just diving more into the conversation and just how it connects to certain things. You mentioned electromagnetic frequencies and even geometry. Like sacred geometry is a thing that we can touch on, because of it really opens the doors to so many things. Even going into like esoteric knowledge and things of that field, occultism and whatnot. Just opening people up to really understanding some of these things even more. But going back to the fact that talking about the electromagnetic aspect of it, like a lot of people don't understand, we are electromagnetic beings. Like our brains have electromagnetic pulses, our hearts produce electromagnetic pulses. This entire world, the fact that there's friggin' gravity, is like everything revolves around electromagnetism and how our energy vibrations connect on certain different frequencies, and so it's like brings it all together, really.
Isn't it what Donnie Darko was about in part? He's walking around. You could see his aura at one part, and they had the big, loophole. You could see everywhere he traveled, and that there was this type of frequency, even though it's about time travel or whatever. Donnie Darko. I'm not quite sure what the rabbit suit was all about and everything else in that movie. It was a great movie, by the way. But yeah, when we start thinking about these, there's more and more science backing a lot of these spiritual claims, these energetic claims, auras, and everything else. And we're finding out that a lot of things that used to be considered paranormal are now being able to be explained by science. And when we look at things like you mentioned, the sacred geometry. Well, look at Metatron's cube. Well, Metatron was the scribe of God. He wrote everything down. Meta as in data, Tron as in computer. Like being injected in a computer. I'm just showing you that etymology of where these terms come from. But when you look at things and you look at the sacred geometrical forms and how everything is math, it's like it gives you a whole new appreciation for the beautiful art of these people who are ancients who knew this. And they studied it. They believed it. They wanted to raise their consciousness and elevate. They wanted to elevate the entire community of the world. And the Egyptians probably were some of the best, maybe some of the worst of it at all times. So when we look at these things and the way the Egyptians, the Babylonians, and it's a tool. It can be used for good, like the Egyptians in most cases, and then it can be used a little bit more roughly, like the Babylonians. Like it's all what you take away from it, and I think a lot of it is on what you want to be and become and what your goals are. And now it all just kind of makes sense to me how you're a leadership trainer, because that's what you need to be. That's what you're doing. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that's amazing to me when you start talking about this stuff, because I have a little window, like a 20-minute window into what you guys are talking about. And there's parts of me that want to kind of go back because I learned so much in that 20-minute window. And then there's a whole part of me that's like, I don't know if I want to risk all the craziness, but at the same time, it's not like that with everything, and I don't even know what I took. All I know is that whatever it was on my marijuana at the time. So, and it made me hallucinate. And that's what I get for taking away some free, giving a homeless guy $20. And he said, "Hey, you want some free pot?" And I said, "Sure." And, next thing you know, I'm kaleidoscoping pyramids from South America with a Mayan guy on top. And I felt like I needed to visit these pyramids. And I haven't done that yet. No, not yet. I got to. But it felt like that was my soul's initiative. My soul was drawing me to find this pyramid. And I literally found the pyramid in my kaleidoscoping. And the kaleidoscoping was frightening to me because I could hear my heart beating in my ears. But at the same time, it slowed down eventually. And then as I got a text message, it switched into a sky filled with stars, and the stars started moving and lines started connecting. And this was my mind understanding it as every action has a reaction. And then I saw a star go out, and I could see that all these collaboration of actions led to that reaction. And it was weird to me, and because a lot of the things you explained about time slowing down, that's exactly what I experienced. And I can see why it makes people wiser. I can see why it works, and I can respect individuals who do this. And even me, now with microdosing, it's like, what's the harm? Why not microdose some, mushrooms in a chocolate candy bar, or go out on a small DMT trip, So maybe we are the pyramids, like Dank in the chat says. You never know. But it's amazing to me when we look at the esoteric things, the sacred geometrical forms, the importance of these forms, the symbolism and the esoteric meaning behind them. And we start to put it all together. We start to realize that the ancients got this from someplace else other than being handed down from somebody else. It originated possibly from doing some of these psychedelics.
Very likely. All those psychedelics are everywhere, like every region has their own and stuff.
So when people do these psychedelics and they're seeing these positive results, this is how they're able to raise consciousness. And when people so when we're talking about raising consciousness, and I know you have an event coming up, we have about 10 minutes left with you. And I wanted to make sure that we talk a little bit about an event that you have coming up in raising consciousness. A lot of people don't realize that they have a higher self. And by that, I mean your higher soul actually decided to be here at this time in history in the universe, and that you're in the meat suit because at one point your higher consciousness, your higher self decided to inject yourself into this world to complete a mission. And some people don't realize what that life mission is until they do psychedelics. And I don't know what it is that psychedelics do, but they definitely help people sort out their mental issues.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, you said a bunch of things there, and I can start with, like, you know, the conference. This is our third year in a row that we're going to do it. Remember the 5th of November. And actually, we're going to have a streaming option for people that don't live in the land of milk and honey or Texas, so they can watch it anywhere. And one of the reasons why we wanted to do this is not because we have answers, but because we have too many questions. You know, we're like, you know, I have all of these questions. This is like fucking legit. I want to connect with all these people that have all these questions.
That's just it. Like, we start connecting with these
Hello,
individuals.
everyone. My name is Luis Fernando.
And
I am one of the
give me a second
producers
here. I
of the
apologize if you have
Consciousness.
sound playing in the background. All right, I fixed it. I was going to have your video running in the background here while we talked, and somehow I got sound through there. So I apologize for that.
Oh, no worries.
But, you know, the event that you have coming up is very interesting. And, you know, we all come
everyone.
together
My
and we
name is
all
Luis
have
Fernando.
answers. We're all looking for answers. And sometimes we need to go to people that have a lot of experience, who have had the ability to do a lot of research on what it is, how psychedelics raise consciousness, and how, as a conglomerate, as a group of people, we can impact and change this world. Everyone has a different idea of raising vibrations or jumping into a different multi-dimensional realm with their mind. And when we look at a lot of these different groups, the Tibetans, we look at things like the Buddhists, we look at people who have used meditation, they have used yoga, who have used psychedelics in some shape or form in order to shape their way. These are the kind of conferences that are starting to grow and that are interesting. Like, I think that the taboo thing, that if you're going to do mushrooms, you're going to go jump off a cliff. I mean, maybe if you're in the Grand Canyon taking them, you have that potential. But are these things, are psychedelics inherently dangerous?
Now I'm like all self-conscious of you showing my video in the really, really cold water.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't
no,
see
it's
that.
okay. It's funny. So, yeah, no, I don't think, like, in fact, like, the only times where it's been dangerous is when people have mental disorders or when they are taking antidepressants, the SSRIs. So those are like the two times where you can actually die, you know? Beyond that, it's relatively safe. And you know, another thing, like, there are plans that make you believe that, like, you're not tripping, it's just normal, you know, you suddenly see something else, and you know, like, so that's when you need a sitter, like datura inoxia, like, you don't even know that you're tripping, so you need somebody with you. So can they jump off the cliff? Yeah, that's real. Does it happen often? No. Does it happen with the mushrooms? No. Like, ayahuasca, you cannot even get up, you know?
Yeah.
Like, let alone try to jump off of anywhere. Like, you can't do shit. Like, you can do shit, probably. That's the only thing you can do, you know? Like you. Anyway, I'm sorry. So, they're very, very safe. And now, I know that we don't have a lot of time, so I have, like, something really cool to say. So, for a while, you know, I've been doing plant medicine since 2010, 2011. And, you know, there's people that really wanted to do it, but they were afraid of, you know, the legality aspect of it. So I just kind of opened it up to the universe, said, I need to find something for these people. Please help me find it. So I found breathwork. And my company's, where we teach breathwork, is the Conscious Breath Experience. So what I do is I help people achieve similar levels of awareness as, you know, if you were to take mushrooms or ayahuasca, through breathing in a certain way. And like you're in these heightened states of consciousness for about an hour. So it's kind of therapeutic because you're not like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, you know. So it's like you can get in and you can get out in 2 hours. And then you can put it to practice. You can put it into, okay, what can I change? What can I make better? You know, it's like it's something that you can make measurable improvements. So, because a lot of times people get kind of stuck in the trip, and by that I mean, you know, they have the same problem all the time. Oh, I gotta go take medicine. Okay, dude, you've had the same problem for like 6 years, and you take medicine all the time. Like, you're not getting the message, you know. So, this is something where you're able to see it faces you with who you are, puts a nice mirror, and that's like, again, the bad trip situation. It's only when you don't like what you see in that mirror, you know. So one thing that one of my teachers told me is like, okay, it may be a monster that you're seeing, but it may be a monster that needs help, you know. So instead of like freaking out, just chill, ask what's going on with you, you know. And I was like, wow, yeah, I have never considered that. So yeah, we'll breathing alone helps you. Like, you know, we have all of those. We have DMT, we produce it, like you said. All the plants have it, so it's kind of like lube for the next show kind of thing, you know, as you go from one place to the other. So it's a fantastic thing. I mean, like, I say those things because the universe has such a weird sense of humor, you know, like it's preposterous. So I just laugh and laugh and laugh because, like, who thinks of these things, you know? So of course, you know, the universe, like, it's like kind of like playing hide and seek with itself. And then you find it, and then it laughs, and then goes hide again. So, fun stuff.
I see you have a large book collection in the background. What are some of the recommended readings you'd have?
Oh, snap. Well, all of these are the ones that I use for classes. Some of the other ones that I have on the other one that you can't see are probably The Secret Teachings of All Ages by Manly P. Hall.
Sure, I own that.
It will help a lot of people understand a lot of things. I mean, of course, I have Michio Kaku with physics. Conscious Capitalism by John Mackey, the guy from Whole Foods. Let me see what else. Oh, David Dida, The Way of the Superior Man. That's going to change people's lives. Another one last one, Search Inside Yourself by the Google guy. That, like, you know, this is like an engineer giving you bullet points to reach enlightenment. It's amazing.
That's awesome stuff. And what is it that you're packing right behind her? Is that a 3D printed gun, or is that a, you know, is that, what do you got there?
Yeah, just an AR that a friend made for me.
That's awesome. Right on.
I shouldn't have said that.
No, it's okay. You're not going to be censored over here. And a lot of our listeners probably do hunt, amongst other things, and sportsmen. And we're here in Wisconsin. We have a large gun culture. Check this out. My father took his gun to show and tell in elementary school. but that's literally we're only like a generation away from that in Wisconsin. So that's like when we had the Kenosha unrest, people didn't understand why. How could so many Democrats have guns? And, you know, people were actually upset that Democrats had guns. I'm like, this is Wisconsin. Everyone has guns. You know, it's probably a lot like that in Texas. When I went and visited, it seemed like everyone has guns. And, you know, your recommended reading is great. Those are all great books, especially the Manly P. Hall stuff. I own about a half a dozen Manly P. Hall books. I read a lot of esoteric books. In fact, that's one of my expertise is dealing with secret societies, everything from, you know, Freemasonry and Knights Templar to a lot of the older esoteric, the Roshania, get into the ancient cultures and adepts of different things, like even the Adam Weishaupt utopianism that happened in the 17 and 1800s. You know, there's so much to there, but Manly P. Hall really dives in the Secret Teachings of All Ages to really dissect astrotheology amongst many other things, and you start to wonder. I read his book on understanding the numerology symbolism in your Bible and how the number 12 is always popping up. You know, like the reason why we go by hours in a 12-hour cycle, because it's an anagram for Horus and his 12 followers, you know, and Horus is a sun deity. So it's very interesting. The term horizon, or Horus has risen. A lot of these etymologies of words and everything else, the sacred geometrical forms, astrotheology. I mean, all that stuff is fascinating, man. And it's great to hear that there's other people that are well-researched on the subjects as well. But for our listeners out there, where can they find you? Where can they hear you? And where can they get more of your stuff? Like your kratom.
Yes, so bestdamnkratom.com is my website. Hard to miss. I'm redoing the website. It's way overdue. So it's still up. You can still buy things. Emancipated Human is the consulting firm. And I'm working on the breathwork website as we speak because I needed to redo some things. So I mean, this is like a nice, like really clean website, but I want to make it more fun,
Right.
So more user friendly, probably for shopping. So I'm always on Facebook, Luis Fernando Misses on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, but mostly I post like stupid shit on Instagram, so probably not as interesting. I like reels and cat memes kind of stuff.
Who doesn't love cat memes? I mean, our whole culture is like centered around cats these days. Like everything on Tickety Talk and all these other platforms is all, cats and dogs and pets. And those are, I mean, animals. And I wonder what animals see if they take mushrooms or they take kratom, or not kratom, mushrooms or psychedelics. Give your cat some DMT, all of a sudden it comes back and starts talking to you. Who knows?
Well, I mean, jaguars eat ayahuasca.
Really?
Like,
I didn't even know that.
There's so many animals that trip, and I can send you more information about it. So
that would be amazing. That's like a whole nother show. Animals on drugs.
Just look it up. Jaguar eating ayahuasca. So they eat the leaves, and they can actually get to them better than we can. Like, we need the two parts of the plant. Well, these fuckers just eat the leaves, and then you see them like like tripping balls.
They're all of a sudden friends with humans. They're not eating you. They're like laying around, rolling around.
Well, my spirit animal is a jaguar. That's how I know all these things. Like, they share some of these things. And I looked it up and I was like, hell yeah. So, I mean, at some point I was being attacked by some entity. And then the jaguar just came onto me and glued itself kind of like the Venom suit. And then I was like, oh, what the hell just happened? So that's when I just go, okay, so this guy's my ally. Okay, thanks for helping me. And then I started learning a bunch of shit. And wow, okay, cool. So we can connect through medicine, plant medicine.
That's really cool. I didn't know that there are other animals that die. I know that dolphins like pass around pufferfish and they trip balls on like pufferfish toxin. But like I didn't know other animals did that. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it gets a lot more fun,
Yeah, bees love cannabis. That's how you know when it's ready to be harvested. Mm-hmm. You start to think about it, and it's like we're missing out a whole part of life that jaguars been knowing for a long time. They're sitting there tripping and getting raising their consciousness, and they're like, "Oh, you pesky humans." Anyways, Luis Fernandez Mises is our guest. Make sure you check him out. You're welcome back anytime. We'll have to talk next time I come down to Dallas. I'm going to be in Austin for the Independent National Convention, which is a competitor to the DNC and RNC. And basically, we bring all the independents together and get a whole bunch of different viewpoints and raise consciousness and have civil conversation. That's going to be in Austin in October. So I'll probably be down by you and I'll hit you up. Maybe we can talk a little bit more about this. I would love to meet you in person sometime soon and talk about psychedelics. I was also down there for Float Fest. I don't know if you've ever been to Float Fest. It's by, Kingsley Edwards, and he does the whole Float app, which is a new social media that's coming out. All that and a whole bunch more. We're heading to commercial break. We'll be back after these messages from our sponsors.
This is Band Questions, take one. Who?
What?
When?
Where?
Why? How?
Questions. When I was growing up, I had so many questions.
I think that questions lead to more questions. Ignorance is bliss.
By middle school,
A child's curiosity is at an all-time high.
And that's because kids like to ask questions.
We need to help them tune out.
Truth doesn't matter.
let's just ban questions altogether.
And encourage kids to do what they're told. To be dull and uninformed.
Listen to the voice of authority.
There are limits.
Dare to be boring.
You can't change the world. Let's ban questions.
Be dumb. Be you.
Ban questions.
Encourage kids to obey today. Take the pledge at thejoycamp.com.
We're not asking, we're telling.
It's no secret that the independent media is held to a much higher standard than the lamestream media. When's the last time that you've seen the New York Times get a 30-day ban for lying about weapons of mass destruction? Or how about the Independent getting a 7-day suspension on YouTube for claiming that everyone that Kyle Rittenhouse shot was African American? The truth is you don't, because they get away with it. We don't. We're independents. And what separates us from the lamestream media is that we are 100% funded by you. That's right, We're your radio program. We're your station, and we're open to everyone. We're interested in hearing all the topics, all the sides, because that's kind of like how science works, right? You take in all the data, you decide what is correct and what is not, but it doesn't censor information, because then you can't make great decisions to feed your brain. We need your help here on therundownlive.com. Support us by heading over to our website and checking out our brand new swag. We have hot and sexy, all-seeing eye UFO pyramid boombox t-shirts. That's right, check them out. They're great, and there's no better way to support us than picking up some swag to spread the word about liberty and freedom and the ability to choose what is real and what is not for yourself, not some ministry of truth. Check us out, therundownlive.com. Pick up a t-shirt today. Again, that's therundownlive.com. Hit our store link and go shop. Pick something up. Support us.
Hey guys, I'm back with it. Is that The Bachelor? Oh, great show.
Oh, what's up, dude?
Hey,
you were just in time.
What's up, buddy?
I've got something that'll make our favorite show even better.
Oh, I bet I know what he's talking about. Oh, yeah! That's what I'm talking about. That was what I was talking about.
Is it sativa?
It's just called Truth Bomb.
Truth Bomb Hybrid, you finna get woke.
Oh.
I don't really know what that means, but we're woke, so it sounds like
let's
it's
get even
just
more
fine.
woke.
Hey, you guys, there's a warning on here.
Shall I?
You shall. How is it?
Taxation is theft.
What did you say? You have to pay taxes. Otherwise, who would build the roads?
You're right.
Besides, Big Pharma is keeping us sick.
Wait. What?
What?
It's true.
Try this. Public schools are indoctrination camps.
Oh!
Whoa! This packs a mighty powerful punch.
Wow, that's the strongest little joint I've ever seen.
Let me put this tiny
And they
thing
are
down.
indoctrination camps.
They are.
Take another hit. Take another hit. I gotta see where this goes.
Okay, tiny joint. Do what you do. The fluoride in our water is calcifying our pineal gland.
Oh my God! That makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. That's our third eye. That's our third eye. Hold on. Wow. Ritual.
Oh shit! It is.
It's in plain sight. It's in plain sight.
Give me. It's my turn. Circumcision is genital mutilation.
It is.
Oh, they just cut your dick tip right off.
Just cut right off.
And I'm Latino. I should still have mine.
Guys, I have an idea.
Oh, what's your idea?
Rundown Live, rundownlive.com. I'm your host, Kriston T. Harris. If you're just joining us, we had a great guest on, Luis Fernando Mises, a libertarian as well as a conscious and psychedelic researcher, and he's a producer of a festival that is happening. We've had a lot of comments in the chat. Somebody says best show on the internet. Got to give some love to Joy Camp. Yep. People are like, well, we do. They have like at least on one show we do have a link always available, or that they push and publish on the video. So if you don't know who makes some of those, sitcoms, sketches, that was a group that was around for probably about 10 years. Comedy Troupe. We've had them on the show. At least one of the members. I think two of the members. At one show, but at least multiple times, and they've always done a great job. Good people. They as well are interested in raising consciousness, and at one time they brought Joy Camp to the Comedy Central, and Comedy Central said they were too smart for the average person, and boy were they wrong, because the conspiracy culture blew up crazy from 2013 to 2016, and they could have probably made a killing if they would have went ahead and ran that show. That would have been one of the that would have been like Jesse Ventura's conspiracy theory, #1 on True TV, and then they don't know what to do because people like it so much they want to get rid of it, so they have to sabotage it. That's kind of the world we live in.
It would be like conspiracy theory for fans of the show Workaholics.
Right. Well, you know, what's interesting is his conversation. I wanted to get more into what the trip stories are. If anyone had interesting trip stories, and you know, time went so fast in this program. But hearing about the Jaguar, like he turned into like trans Jaguar and took on the evil monster, and he's like raw and he won. That made it worth
That's
it.
awesome. Yeah, that was really cool. I didn't know there were so many other animals that did like psychedelics and plants and stuff. Like I said, I knew about the dolphins. And if anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, like dolphins, they'll take pufferfish and they'll pass the pufferfish around, and like pufferfish secrete this toxin called tetrodotoxin. And for humans, it's hella deadly. Like if you get stung by a pufferfish, you're probably gonna die. But for dolphins, for some reason, when they start passing around the pufferfish and start like ingesting the tetrodotoxin, they like trip balls. And I didn't know that there are other animals that did that, like jaguars eating ayahuasca and stuff. That's really interesting.
Yeah, you know, this is the article. This ABC News: dolphins get high on pufferfish, says Nature show. And you know, that might be true. They absolutely might be true. I just always thought people did drugs and that made them bad people, but that's not the case. We're getting older, we're finding out by questioning things. And you know, one of the things I want to talk about that I want to question is this image coming from California right here. That's this one here. Tell me what you see here, Don, for our listeners that are out there at home. And we're going to try to do a rundown of about 10 news stories in 15 minutes here. But I have an image on the screen of a vehicle. What type of vehicle would you say that is?
It looks to be an electric Tesla plugged up into a gasoline-powered generator.
This is California. This is like the second or third image that I've seen being handed around the internet of Tesla vehicles. One of them, a Tesla, actually had a mount on the back where the generator, they could run it while driving and charge their car. I don't know if they decided to work Uber and Lyft, or they have a long ride and they might get stuck in traffic, but they literally had a generator mounted to the back of their car and plugged in. And you can see that image on the Rundown Live Facebook. And if you haven't added us on Facebook, you know, you all use it. You're all addicted to it, like the WWF wrestling. You know it's fake, but you're there anyways and you watch it anyways. Go to the Facebook, the Rundown Live, find us, like it, and share the stuff that we put on there. Visit it daily. But yeah, so they don't want you to power your electric car in California, but they're outlawing all gasoline cars in 17 years.
It's insane. Like, you know, I keep reverting back to this phrase, clown world intensifies. We got to find a new phrase because it's just become so mundane and so average. We got to find a new phrase to properly exemplify and articulate what the flip is going on in the world.
Well, so this is all as a result of what was originally known as a giant hoax, the global warming hoax, which later turned into climate change because of climate changes. And we've talked about how the super elite and rich that push this agenda, they don't believe it. And people are like, what do you mean? Al Gore. I mean, Al Gore stands to make millions and billions off of carbon credits. So we're going to just throw any kind of credibility out the door. Like, if you tell me that I can make billions of dollars by standing on one leg, rubbing my belly, and telling you whatever I need to tell you, I will tell you that as long as I know that I'm going to make that money. Like, there was that. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. That was Maurice Strong, was a puppet used by the banking dynasty. And they used it, and they basically concocted a plan in order to establish global government. And they were going to use it under the guise of fear. They were going to implant fear that the earth is going to be destroyed. This was decided many years ago, and they first tried using it in the 70s under global cooling, that man-made activity was cooling the planet. And then it was warming. And then after WikiLeaks, Julian Assange exposed that the whole thing was BS, you know, that climate change isn't real, like they claim it is, like weather modifications going on. But in the fact that, yeah, we should be good stewards of the earth, but we aren't affecting whether the earth gets warmer or cooler to that great of an effect. Like, I'm sure we have some impact, but it's not to the impact where they're like the world, like, what is it? Who's the little like 15-year-old girl that they always Greta Thunberg or Thunberg.
Yeah, Thunberg. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, the world's gonna end in 12 years. Well, we're about 8 years away from that. When she's like 30 and she's still flying around in jet planes, you think she's gonna be like, I was wrong? No, she's gonna be out there championing climate change. She isn't gonna admit that she was a hoax and that it was fake and she was wrong. No. And so they're doing this all under this guise. And this is what we were warned about by Lord Sidney Moncrief, who was actually he heard firsthand that they dismissed all evidence supporting in the contrary that there isn't going to be climate crisis because of the fact that it was so useful of a fear tool that they feel that they could control every aspect of human life. And that's now what they are doing. They're more worried about, cow farts than, crickets causing global warming and other things like volcanoes. And to be honest, we don't really have a major impact. Like they can't even measure the impacts that humans have. They don't even know. If science was settled, they'd have that. So there's a lot of like BS that they push. So now they got all of California to push an agenda. Whatever the agenda is, it's always for climate change. That is like it's for your safety that the military and authoritarians use. If they tell you it's for your safety, you're going to lock yourself in the house. They proved that 2 years ago. If it's for your safety, that you're going to need a piece of paper to drive around. They showed that 2 years ago. If it's for your safety, you're going to go line up at a concentration camp or call it a football stadium or a Walmart or whatever it is to go get your jab or get locked up because you don't want to be in a safe zone. And essentially it's fear. So now people, they're not using electricity in their house. They're just getting a generator and doing exactly what they're not supposed to be doing. They're supposed to suffer. They're supposed to get uses. And in China right now, they actually are talking about taking 3 weeks off to combat climate change. They're going to lock it down and they're going to have drones flying around going, meh, 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 like they live. And Roddy Piper's going to come out of the grave and walk around in his little Skeletor suit with glasses going, they live, and that's what, like literally the clown world we live in. We're living in Demolition Man. We're living in Blade Runner. We're living in these times when things are becoming exactly what we said. Now, Dank in the chat will remember this because I'm sure he's probably one of our first listeners. He was listening to the Rundown Live when we had about 6 people in the video chat. We weren't on band.video. We weren't on YouTube. We weren't on, in fact, there was no YouTube live streaming. The videos were on YouTube, but we were live streaming on what was called Truth Broadcasting Network, which had shows broadcasting every hour. And he would tune in and be in the chat, and we warned about this. And that's the fact that they're making robots look more humanitarian. And we asked, well, why is it that they're making robots look like Wall-E? And we thought, well, then it's for metadata collection. And they're like, what do you mean metadata collection? I mean that they want to know things, and your kid will tell a little Wall-E robot things that they wouldn't tell a human, because we tell our kids not to talk to a stranger, but government approved robot is okay. And just to prove that there is an agenda there that we warned about almost 10 years ago to the day on the Rundown Live, you can go look up the old episodes. All like majority of them are still under Big P Zone, Pizzone, BIGP-ZONE on YouTube. You can't find it unless you search that term. And you'll find about a treasure trove of about 700 episodes of us predicting just about everything that we're going through right now. And the people at that time said we were nuts, lunatics, and conspiracy theorists. And, you should get a gold medal for predicting this stuff. But here it is. Children more candid about mental health when talking to robot. Oh, robot's going to be like, do mommy and daddy fight? And kid would probably not tell a stranger or psychologist this, but they're finding out that they'll tell robots.
Yeah, they make it more kid friendly and make it look like a toy. Like kids, they'll talk to your toy, they'll talk to their toys all the time, and just have these sort of conversations. And so making it, fit more into that vein, making it look more like a toy, more kid friendly to where they can, provide this information to it. I mean, that's exactly.
Doop. It's R2D2. Beep, bop, boop, doop. Oh, R2D2, I love you. Hello, did your mommy and daddy fight last night? Were they verbally abusive? CPS next day, knocking on your door. Well, guess what? little Wally looking health robot came in and this is where the sex robots are coming in. When people start getting the robots, start doing laundry, taking out trash and making your bed, they're going to just kind of come in, and that's going to be the end of the human civilization. I'm telling you right now, and I'm not talking about in a way of Will Smith, but the government's going to use them in every shape or form to come after you as an individual. And this article says the Now robot, NAO, looks more like a prop from a low-budget sci-fi film than a cutting edge of medical research, but a study found that children felt more comfortable confiding in child-sized, quizzical-looking human robot than responding to mental health assessments with their parents. Do you identify as a girl? Do you like Dora the Explorer? Are you into Strawberry Shortcake and My Little Pony, and you have been clinically and medically termed a male? Well, tell you what, you may be transgender. You can tell me anything. And by the way, would you be interested in transitioning into a girl? Would you want to be a girl? Because we can make that happen. And don't worry, CPS will come and make sure that you get your 3-year-old sex change, you little child. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but if it happens, you heard it here first.
Well, I mean, when it comes to the gathering of information, going back to the first part of this thing, I mean, we're already seeing that with like the Google Echo and the Amazon Echo, whatever the hell they are. These devices that everyone's putting in their houses. And I told people from the get-go, man, don't put those damn things in your houses. I know it's convenient. You can do a lot of cool stuff. That's exactly how they get you. But I was like, these things are like surveillance apparatus on crack. And now we know that's a fact. I was predicting that back, before they even rolled these things out, when they were just talking about, oh yeah, we're going to have these things called the Alexa and the Echo. And I said before they ever went mainstream, don't put the shit in your house. And now, of course, years later,
I got one. It's like, hey, Google, turn on the lights. I don't get the Alexa. Alexa calls the cops. Google listens probably, but doesn't call the cops. Oh, no, man, I'm with you. Don't get this. We've been warning you. In other dystopic news, China, climate lockdowns. They're saying it makes the grass greener if you listen to the government and you stay in your house while the drones come out. They now have something that I remember when drones and people said, well, they're going to put guns on drones. And you know what they'd call you, Don? Nah, you're a conspiracy theorist. If I told you 10 years ago that they're going to have robots out there on the road and they might have guns because they have like flying robots and fish robots and swimming robots and climbing robots and 3D printing robots that can reproduce multiple other robots for other jobs based on, different DARPA reports and other British, high-tech organization reports, people call me nuts and crazy. But here it is. This is good old China. China's doing it right, I guess, because that's what the world wants to be. And by the way, what does China do for carbon emissions? They do nothing. Only the United States has the strictest carbon ratings, and they're cutting down on gasoline cars in 17 years while China pollutes and makes all the money while we get destroyed, financially. But anyways, robo-soldiers, China unveils RoboCop, exoskeletons, gun-wielding, killing robot dogs, and X-ray tech to help soldiers see through walls. That's right. And pretty soon we'll have them. They'll tell them your social credit score and who you are right there in the goggle. But a chilling video shows Chinese military unveiling more than of their high-tech weapons as tensions continue to rage with the West. Beijing flaunted its military tech in the new video, which shows a machine gun-armed robot dog, a small ball scout drone, and a soldier wearing an exoskeleton. Look at that. He's starting to become Halo, like the video game Halo. And that's how I got to talk to people these days, is in video game terms. But yeah, man, look at that. They have like a machine gun in the back of the dog, and then they have this guy with an exoskeleton that, who knows, you can attach maybe 6 or 7 guns to it, and he can be just moving around me like, and just add a little AI to those guns, and it will see who it needs to shoot and shoot it for you. You just need to have to be there. It is understood that the technology is made by Chinese defense firm Kestrel, and the clips are from the exercises were shared to Beijing's state-monitored social media site Weibo. Footage from the drills shows soldiers attaching a control panel to the wall of a building before another troop then rolls in a small ball like a drone. The ball then opens and becomes a tiny vehicle, which then explores the building and beams the information back to the men outside, allowing them to map out the structure and see inside like an X-ray. Hey, there you go. That's what we got. That's the future, bro. If we don't do anything, if we sit here,
the more
RoboCop.
The more I see this like militaristic technology, the more it reminds me of that Albert Einstein quote. I know not with which weapons World War III will be fought, but I know World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones, and it's very concerning.
It is very concerning, and we got a bunch of other news, but we're going to leave that for the next show that we do tomorrow, so make sure you guys are tuning in. Don't go anywhere. Punch the like button, share the live link, let our friends know other quick news articles that you guys need to know about, and we're going to just read the lines instead of showing you the pictures on the screen. Oath Keepers members include hundreds of elected officials, police, and military personnel. Leaked lists suggest, Oath Keepers was created for former veterans and police officers and politicians who would refuse to disobey the Constitution. That's the organization's entire original concept. Now, whether or not it's I wouldn't consider it a racist organization, but is it a militia type organization? Sure. It could be, it could be figured there. The ADL Center on Extremism said has identified more than 370 people named on the leaked Oath Keepers membership list. It believes currently work in law enforcement agencies across the country, including at least 10 chiefs and 11 sheriffs. Nobody's going around asking how many Antifa people work for Bellingcat and, the government and all these organizations, and they're an extremist group. Maybe people need to start looking at who, what judges are Antifa. Like Alex Jones's judge was Antifa, was posting Antifa. You don't see people going, oh, they're part of an extremist, a group that was on a terrorist watch list, that judge supports them. It's funny how there's a double standards. It also found more than 80 individuals across the country who were as early as August holding or running for public office with positions ranging from mayor, town council members, and school board. Emergency responders also featured prominently on membership lists because the organization was founded on this. The ADL pretends like they don't know what it is, and they want to paint it as an extremist group, but they just don't know how because they don't like guns. They don't want you to take care of yourself. Like Joe Biden telling half of Americans that they don't love the Constitution while he's trying to take the guns and ruin the Second Amendment. He's that's the double speak that we're talking about. That politicians nonstop doing. It doesn't matter if they're conservative or liberal. Also, here it is. Gavin McGinnis resurfaces on vacation after enraging allies by faking his arrest. We reported that he is arrested during a live stream. It was fake. He faked it. Here it is. Another article. Blackouts imminent. 75,000 powerless as record California power usage sparks. The funny thing is all these issues really started with smart meters. Makes you wonder if they're turning off the lights purposely. To jack prices up, because that has been found to happen before. And that's the thing we warned you about back, 10 years ago when we were warning about this ideology and the things that smart meters could do and how it could be criminally used. That being said, there's also the Boogaloo Boys are now growing. The movement is growing. And what do you think happens when you call a group an extremist organization? It attracts extremists. Then you guys out there like the ADL who mischaracterize organizations, help develop them by advertising that they are extremist groups when they really aren't extremist groups, like the Oath Keepers. There might be extremists involved, but it doesn't mean there's extremists involved in church, there's extremists involved in government. We don't call the whole thing extremist. It's their way of taking a broad brush and painting a picture or color on every person out there. Here it is in the Hill. Violent extremist movement Boogaloo Boys reemerges on Facebook. Are they a violent extremist group? I don't know. I haven't seen them cause any extremism. But if you're going to tie everything dealing with January 6th to Boogaloos, that's again a broad stroke. Everything that seems to be extreme is anything that is a threat to leftist ideology. And just because you're a threat to leftist ideology doesn't mean you're an extremist, just means that you have different ideas and you should be able to sit down and talk about it, like Aaron Rodgers said. You guys have a great one. This is the Rundown Live. We'll see you guys tomorrow, same time, same channel. Share the live link, find us on band.video, and don't forget to send us your emails, showtips@therundownlive.com, showtips@therundownlive.com. We need your donations. Pick up a t-shirt. We need your support. Find us. You know where it's at. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Stay blessed.